This is The Bagel Report, a podcast exploring Jewish representation and identity in popular culture, with your hosts Esther Kostanowitz and Aaron Ben Moshe, and now a production of J, the Jewish News of Northern California. Hey, Aaron.
Hey, Esther. How are you?
I'm doing great, thanks. How are you doing?
I'm great. We have an awesome episode for you listeners today.
We do. It's true. We have an interview with Jenni Rudolph and Maryam Chishti, who are the co-executive directors of the LUNAR Collective.
We've been following them for a couple years since they formed during the pandemic, and we can't wait for you to get to know them and hear their takes on pop culture and identity. And it was just a really amazing conversation. But I think we should introduce them to you before we jump in.
Sure, let's do that.
So Jenni Rudolph is the co-executive director of LUNAR. She is a LA-based musician and multimedia editor with a passion for authentic and underrepresented storytelling. She was raised on the periphery of multiple communities as a mixed-race, secular Asian American Jew with Cantonese and Russian Ashkenazi Jewish heritage.
Wow.
She serves as the co-executive director of the LUNAR Collective, cultivating connection, belonging, and visibility for Asian American Jews. Jenni is a Berklee College of Music grad, a Pat Pattinson Songwriting Award Scholar, Songs for Social Change honoree, and a Johnny Mercer Songwriters Project Fellow. And in her spare time, she enjoys solving escape rooms, designing murder mysteries, and attempting to fathom higher spatial dimensions.
Wow. I
know.
I guess that's like, we're also trying to, solve for the quantum realm in here. Sounds like she's a real underachiever.
She's out of our league, really.
I know. They both are. Maryam Chishti is also a co-executive director and a proud Muz Jew, which, if you're thinking that means what you think it means, it does mean that. She is interfaith with an Indian Muslim father and a Jewish American mother who raised her in both religions and cultures. She works in the political/arts space in New York City and has a soft spot for work that intersects the two. Maryam has a BA from Brandeis University in American Studies and Theater for Social Change. Outside of LUNAR, she runs the new Moishe House in New York City and is passionate and excited about bringing more Asian Jews into the growing community.
Jenni and Maryam, welcome. We're so glad that you're with us on the Bagel Report this week.
Thank you for having us.
This is so fun. Thank you.
So we have a lot to cover today, and we want to get to know both of you, not just as the co-founders of this organization, but also what you like. And we are the Bagel Report, and we're obsessed with pop culture. And it's amazing we have time to do anything else when we watch so much content. So we're really excited to talk to you and hear about what you're watching and what makes you feel seen and represented in Jewish life. So what were some of your favorite traditions and ritual moments of culturally specific connection to your Jewish and Asian American culture growing up?
My answer will be short. I have very few. I grew up with almost no access to my cultures. We didn't celebrate Lunar New Year. We didn't celebrate any Asian holidays. We celebrated Hanukkah and a couple Passovers, I think. I went to a Jewish preschool, and then when the preschool closed, I had no access to Jewish community. So I grew up with pretty much no cultural access. My sisters and I would make up our own holidays and our own rituals and sister traditions, but I really didn't have much cultural connection.
Yeah, I have an Indian Muslim father and a white Ashkenazi Jewish mother who brought me up in both of their cultures and both of their faiths pretty specifically. So I practice Islam and Judaism and spent time every summer in India, and then grew up on the Upper West Side of New York. So a lot of Judaism there. A fun memory every year for Passover is the one time a year that my dad cooks. He's not a big cook, but he'll make this Kashmiri lamb dish. And I'll take the day off of work and stay up all night cutting the onions. And it's this big, laborious process to make the Kashmiri lamb that we all eat on Passover. So it's so funny when people talk about Passover and kugel and certain foods that are their foods. I just think about this Indian lamb dish that I eat with my family.
You know, it's very interesting that, Jenni, you said you had no access to your cultures, and Maryam, you said you had both cultures, and that you found your way to the same space, I think is very interesting. And I'm wondering, can you tell me a little bit about how you connected to each other and to LUNAR, and what that looked like to find someone in your orbit who has both similar background, but yes, also different cultural backgrounds, but has different access and no access and both. It's just all very, there's so much going on there. And I think it's very indicative of the fact that people who are of mixed background have varied experiences with their cultures. So it's not the same for everyone.
It's so true. Yeah. And even between Maryam and I, like, we are able to represent like a good subset of the Asian Jewish community that we run. And that feels really special. So the way that we found each other was I co-founded LUNAR originally as a film series, which we can get into. And we were running it as a film series for a minute. And then as this massive community began to gather around the film series, begging us for community events, our team was like, okay, we need to bring on somebody to organize community programs and really cultivate this community. So we hired Maryam initially as our community organizer, then our director of community engagement. And now she and I are both co-executive directors of the LUNAR Collective, and we love the shared leadership model. It's been amazing. And I'll let Maryam speak, but personally, it's just really special to be running it with somebody that I click with so well. And that, as you said, on many levels, we have very different life experiences and we each bring something unique, but we also really align on a lot of things and have a ton of common ground as well. And that's been really special.
Yeah, I mean, LUNAR wouldn't have existed without Jenni. And she really spearheaded its inception and continues to keep the ship going. And I think, yes, there are a lot of ways that we're different. I think also in terms of like our Jewish journey and our Asian journey, with Jenni having East Asian identity and having South Asian identity, like there, and me being interfaith, like there are some distinguishing factors there. But I think when it comes to LUNAR, we find that we are exactly aligned in terms of just this feeling growing up of like, why am I a little bit different than everyone else? And there's this weird thing that I can't place my a finger on, but I'm going and I'm showing up in Jewish spaces or I'm showing up in Asian spaces, and I don't feel seen, and I don't feel like I fit, and I just feel weird. And I'm going home and I'm feeling weird, and I'm kind of stewing in this feeling. And I think LUNAR's been the answer to that feeling. And every single Asian Jew from all of our different backgrounds and identities, being adopted, being a Jew of choice, being interfaith, being Orthodox, never practicing Judaism, we all have felt that. And that feeling kind of brings us together. And LUNAR really is the answer to that.
It's amazing that you have that community. And we talked about your access to Jewish community, but how would you explain the Jewish communal reaction to Asian Jews? Would you say it's racist, exclusivist? Is it just carelessness and closed-mindedness that people assume based on their experiences that anyone who is an Asian Jew must be a convert or adopted? Can you speak a little bit about how you've encountered reactions to Asian Jews in Jewish communal life?
I think it's everything on the spectrum of being super supportive and amazing allies to being pretty not very inclusive, othering, or even racist. So it's definitely a massive spectrum, just as there's no one way to be an Asian American, there is no one way to be a Jew, and people's reactions just across the board are a total spectrum. I would say that I think we're really pushing the narrative here and really striving towards a Jewish community that is more inclusive and more not only like includes us, but centers us, celebrates us, welcomes us. But I think many of us have grown up feeling really left out of the mainstream Jewish narrative, of Jewish community, feeling like when we are in these spaces that people don't see us for our full selves, that people make assumptions about us, that people question us. Why are we here? How much do we even know about Judaism? Do we even really count as Jewish? Looking for reasons why we wouldn't count. Oh, is your mom even Jewish? Oh, it's your dad that's Jewish. Oh, you're adopted. Oh, you're mixed race. Like looking at these checklist of reasons why we shouldn't count when really we're all about why do we count? Why are we Jewish? What makes us Jewish? What does it mean to be an Asian Jew? And all that encompasses.
Yeah, I think Jenni said it so well. It's a wide spectrum of responses. And we see all of them a little bit every week. But I think something that really grinds my gears and gets me frustrated in terms of responses, I think, is the little subtle, don't mean to offend, but subconscious feelings of, oh, how many of you guys are there anyway? Like 10 people, and LUNAR is just kind of like a little, as someone said once, like they're worried that people will think LUNAR is just like an Asian Jewish club, as opposed to a national community of thousands of people. And so that feeling of minimization is really frustrating. And I think it also ties into Jenni and I are really young leaders, we're female leaders, and sometimes we feel like LUNAR just gets really underestimated for all of those reasons. And that kind of grinds me gears. This is small comments of like, are there enough people in New York for you guys to do an event? Like, why don't you merge with another group? Why don't you, why do you need this? That feels incredibly frustrating to me.
It does sound incredibly frustrating on a multitude of levels. My God, the audacity. I want to talk about how this was created, because also just looking at your YouTube page, it's not just like 5 or 6 voices. There's dozens of voices here who are excited to talk to you about their experience. And you started this in 2020, which was a very chaotic time for every single person in the world. And it started as an Asian film project. And I love that. And Jenni, I know you're a very creative person. Where were you in your life in summer 2020 when you created this?
Yeah, so if you can remember what 2020 was like, not much was going on in the world. It was a very boring and still time. No, we were going through a massive pandemic, and that was also supposed to be the year that I graduated. I actually graduated a year early. So I graduated in 2019, moved back to my hometown, and was kind of in that post-grad slump where I was like saving up to move to LA, where I live now. I'm in the music industry, so that's been a whole process of like, I was networking and doing sessions and really just trying to get my career going. And then the pandemic hits and many things happened at once. One is that both the Jewish community and the Asian American community were faced with a major increase in hate crimes, discrimination, and violence. And the world was just more isolated. I think this feeling of isolation was just super pervasive across the board, and then particularly within both of our communities, and then within this intersection where we were isolated in our homes. We feel that we really need some kind of community. We're trying to process all of this hate and violence. We don't really have a community to lean on to process with. And that's really how LUNAR came to be. So we started out as a film series. I remember initially it was just like, we want to make ourselves visible. We don't see ourselves out there. The Jewish community doesn't see us because we're not putting ourselves out there. So let's create a film series that highlights Asian Jewish young adults. Let's get our stories out there and see what happens. So we put out a casting call, and initially we were like, okay, let's try to get like 10 cast members. That'd be good. 10 people, get them on Zoom, have a conversation. And then we had the casting call up. I think we just put it out on Facebook, and we had it up for like 2 days. And then we got 51 responses and quality responses too, like people submitting audition videos and like pretty much essays of their life story. And we were like, okay, we got to close the application because 51 people is already way too many to sort through and have to choose between. So we closed the applications. We went through and we cast 23 Asian American Jewish young adults, put them on Zoom. We had to split it into like 5 different Zoom sessions because 23 people in one Zoom is chaotic. And we filmed the film series. And from that, we created 2 seasons, 11 episodes. And then we created some like bonus episodes as well. And yeah, when we put the film series out just this massive community of Asian Jews started to support the series. We started to rack up a bunch of followers on Instagram, and people were like, how can we connect? Can you do Zoom events? When will it be safe for us to gather in person? And so every step of the way, like, we started to do Zoom events. And then as the vaccine rolled out, we were like, all right, let's try some in-person stuff, see how it goes. And people were just so excited to connect. And then fast forward to now, and LUNAR, the Jewish-Asian Film Project, is now the LUNAR Collective, a multifaceted organization by and for Asian American Jews. And we do a lot more than just film and media, but that was definitely our launching point. And we have a bunch of other exciting arts and culture initiatives as well. So we're always expanding, and it's been really exciting.
It sounds like you really hit upon a pocket of people who were basically just waiting to be asked about their identity and to engage in storytelling. I'm wondering if there's a way to translate that instinct for storytelling into a space beyond the video series in the Jewish community. What does actual inclusion in the Jewish community look like? How can Jewish communities welcome and celebrate those stories without tokenizing?
That is such a great, interesting question. And we try to figure that out at LUNAR all the time. Jenni and I feel like we don't, we're not a DIE expert, and we don't have a background in active anti-racist education. We know our own experiences, and we know how to uplift our own community specifically. But in that vein, I'll say there are just so many points where I think what we call Ashken normativity is in the Jewish mainstream and the storytelling that we see in the movies and the culture. And there's just so many moments where I wish that someone would have said, hey, how are we going to include other kinds of Jews in this? Even in that movie that came out recently with Eddie Murphy and Jonah Hill, You People. And there were scenes at the congregation or moments of Jewish practice where no Jew of color was. It was just a completely white Ashkenazi crowd. Or Jenni and I had this thing on Instagram this past week where a comedian had posted a video being like, "Are Jews white?" And he was interviewing other Jews on the streets in New York talking about Jews and whether they relate to whiteness. And I just left a little comment as Asian Jews being like, "Hey, Jews of color exist too." Wish that one person would have said that during the few minutes of interviews and debate. So I think it's getting people to start to get the gears turning in their head to say that and make those small pushes and just changing the narrative and reminding people that Jews of color existed, that Asian Jews exist, and they're a visible, nuanced community that is really important and matters and belongs. That I think is the biggest thing that we can do outside of supporting these organizations with money and venue space and resources. I think it's picking away at our automatic assumptions of Jews and Jewish stories. And, on the other hand, Asians and Asian stories. I think as much as we try to make sure that Jews know that Asian Jews exist, we've also been doing more and more work with the Asian community, being like, Asian Jews exist. And they're like, whoa. And it's endlessly fascinating on both ends of that.
Yes, it's really interesting that you bring up You People, because we've done 2 episodes on You People, and we've really tried to go through every critic, every tweet, every Instagram post of who liked and who hated this movie. And so many people did not like this movie because it felt like they didn't go out in the world and look for anyone. They just said, let's take this, and that's right? And I wonder, did you see the movie?
No, I haven't seen the movie. It sounded frustrating to me. Also, someone who's Muslim and Jewish, so I haven't seen it. I've heard a decent amount, and it's funny. I think my white Ashkenazi Jewish friends are like, "This movie's amazing," and then I talk to any JFC, and they're like, "That movie's trash."
It's so interesting.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah,
you may not know this, but Aaron and I were extras. We were background actors in the synagogue scene.
Oh, no way.
And so I don't know if I'm making up this memory, Aaron, but I seem to remember you saying to me that this was a very white room, that it was not
I did. I looked around.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of diversity in the room.
We also use the word Ashka forward all the time on this podcast about the fact, even Sephardic stories, that is also a very big population of Jewish community in Los Angeles. And anytime there's like a Los Angeles Jewish character, they are always Ashkenazi. And it's frustrating for us. So I imagine that if you have other intersections of your Jewish identity, you're equally as frustrated, if not more.
And Maryam, if you ever watch You People, I think you need to call us and we'll have a conversation about it, because we looked at it from the white Jewish perspective. We looked at it from the Black and Muslim perspective, but you represent an interesting cross-section of those cultural highlights. So it would really be interesting to hear your take on it. And probably would have been interesting for Jonah Hill and Kenya Barris to invite more voices into the conversation at the creation stage. But, we can't have everything and we don't have a time machine. So, and I also love what you said about Ashken normativity. Like, it's something, like Erin said, Erin's trying to get Ashken forward going. Like, that's the one she uses because it's like what you're leading with. It's like the taste is Ashka forward. I love that. I use Ashken normative all the time, and I use it in writing as well. But I think also a lot of people don't know what that is. So I just want to say that it refers to Ashkenazi Jewish experience as the assumed primary experience of Jews in America and probably elsewhere as well. But when you see something on TV that's supposed to be Jewish, the indicators that the person is Jewish usually indicate an Ashkenazi Jewish background as opposed to a Sephardi Jewish background or any background of a Jew of color or of a different experience. So having spoken to that definition, I want to also jump to identity definitions that you use at LUNAR, because I saw it on your website as well, but I hope that you can just articulate it for our audience. The organization is designated as Asian Jewish as opposed to AAPI, Asian American Pacific Islander, which is an acronym that we've heard in the press for about the last year after the emergence of more anti-Asian hate that emerged during the pandemic. And obviously, the entire AAPI community has been impacted by racism, but why and how are you making the distinction here that the collective doesn't include Pacific Islanders' experience? And is that something that you might do in the future?
I'd love to answer this one, since this was definitely a question that came up for us as we were creating the film series. We know that representing Asian American Jews is already such a broad category. Our community members come from over 40 countries. We are just an incredibly diverse community. And when we were initially creating the film series, one of our questions was, are we Asian American Jews? Are we AAPI Jews? And we consulted with some Pacific Islander friends, and they said we should just focus on what we know and what we're able to represent as Asian American Jews and not contribute to the harmful lumping in of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders and Native Hawaiians. We see with this month, with Heritage Month, we all share a Heritage Month. And I think it's kind of bittersweet because I feel a lot of support and solidarity with the Pacific Islander community. But I also know that we have different experiences and society lumps us into this one box. And we're all here in this box trying to support each other, knowing that our experiences are different and we need to uplift each other and acknowledge that our experiences are different and give each other space for our own unique stories. So in that vein, we decided to limit it to just Asian American Jews. However, if any Pacific Islander Jews create a project, I would love to hear about it and support it. And then within this demographic, we were also faced with the question of who is an Asian American Jew? I think when people hear about LUNAR, our Instagram handle, our website says Asian Jews. And so people often think, oh, Asian Jews like Kaifeng Jews in China or Indian Jews. Asian Jews in Asia is what a lot of people think of. And although we often go by Asian Jews just to keep it short for Instagram handles and such, When we say that, we say Asian American Jews. We want to make that distinction because Asian American is a distinct identity. It is a political identifier. It is this distinct community in the United States. We are racialized a certain way. We are treated a certain way. And we want to acknowledge that. And when we say American, we don't just mean the United States. We also include Canada. And we also welcome Asian Jews in other countries such as like Australia and the UK. Anywhere where Asians are a minority is a community that we want to be uplifting because too often we are made invisible. So we want to be making ourselves visible.
It's so tricky to figure out, right, who makes an Asian Jew. And all the time, I think on our Instagram, I even like a bunch of comments this week were like, well, aren't all Jews Asians? And then are Israeli Asian Jews? And like, people just kind of embrace themselves. And I'm like, I don't think you get the point. Like, it really is, I think, a racialized experience and an experience of isolation, an experience of not quite fitting. That I think will kind of quickly weed out who is an Asian Jew and who's not, that you can see from our website and our Instagram, like the way that our community comes together around shared values and culture and recipes and ritual and moments is what I think makes an Asian Jew or not. And it's to a certain extent, it's who you are, but it's also how the world sees you. All of that.
And I'd love to add, like, we've just said who isn't an Asian Jew, but it's a longer list to say who is an Asian American Jew. Our community comprises of mixed race people, transracial adoptees, Jews by choice, folks with heritage from over 40 countries. We really come to LUNAR with such a diversity of backgrounds, of life experiences, of beliefs, of occupations and class backgrounds and family dynamics. And it's so beautiful to see how a community within a seemingly niche intersection can represent such a wide array of people. There's no one way to be an Asian American Jew.
I love that. And in one of your early videos, someone says, I didn't know there were more of us until we started connecting. And I think that is such a beautiful and bittersweet thing. Did you both feel that way too? Like, I know you were talking about you got 50 plus submissions. Like, were you expecting that many? How many? Like, I love that you're bringing people together, not just in the country, but in all around the world where there are more of you than you realize, but you are, like you say, a minority. Like, what did that feel like for you to see this group grow so quickly and you're serving in need of connection in a time where people desperately needed that?
It's definitely an ongoing feeling. It hits us and it hits our community every time that we have an event, whether that's Zoom or in person. Just staring at a room full of Asian Jews, like, whoa, there are enough of us to fill this room. There are enough of us who just happen to hear about this event to fill this room. There must be way more of us out there than we ever thought or were led to believe. And I think, initially it's just the shock, it's the amazement, the joy of connecting. And then I think after that sinks in, there's a level of anger as well at why did it take us so long to find each other? We all believed we were the only one. What forces were at play in isolating ourselves and keeping us convinced that we were so different that we had to be the only one and it wasn't even worth trying to find a community because what are the odds? I think there's definitely anger and frustration and regret that comes up as we realize how long it's taken for us to find each other. And that's why we're so passionate about keeping LUNAR growing and spreading the word so that future generations of Asian Jews don't have to grow up feeling alone, don't have to grow up feeling different, because LUNAR will be there for them. They will see themselves represented in the mainstream Jewish narrative, and they will know that they are perfectly normal and fine and that they belong.
Yeah, I often liken finding the LUNAR community to like gasping for air. Like, you get in a room with people and you're like, oh my God, I have so much to say. Like, oh my God, I have all these things that I'm realizing and all these things that I wish I could have told someone, or this thing happened to me once that didn't feel good. And now I can tell you guys and you'll understand. And like, it's just like a gasping. And I remember the first event I ran for LUNAR was a spa day in New York, and we had like face masks and a masseuse. And I was like, I'm not going to plan any conversation points. Like, I want this to be a relaxing Shabbat spa day. Like, people just relax. And everyone came in and was like, oh my God, I have so much to tell you guys. And we all just ended up kind of sitting on the ground in a circle, like on the floor, cross-legged and talking. And like I had to keep reminding people, like, go get a massage. We have a masseuse, because people were just so eager to talk and connect. And we just continue to see that at every lunar event. And for Jenni and I, who have been doing this work for more than 2 years now, like we're still processing our identities and who we are and how we feel about this and how the world treats us. Like we had a storytelling event in New York because we're gathering stories. We're putting together an Asian Jewish theater show, which is really exciting. And both Jenni and I wrote this pieces that was like, damn, there's some deeper feelings here. And I was like, getting really emotional reading mine about like realizations I had in therapy that day about how other people were going to see me as someone who's a professional Asian Jew, and like my own like workings on that and my thoughts around that. So it continues to be ongoing work that I think is so dug down and never had the chance to like be out in the open because, as we said, we were so isolated from each other. And I think you're asking what lunar means to people. Like I know from someone who didn't start with lunar, it even started with, I'm in a Moishe house, a Jewish community house in New York, and someone said, oh, there's a Jews of color group, you should join. And I was like, oh, like, yes, I'm a Jew of color. I hadn't even like heard that phrase. That was kind of like head scratching to me. And I went and I saw another Asian Jew and I was like, oh, no way. And they put us in a breakout room together. And I was like, you're and I'm, I was kind of like piecing it together. And he was like, you should look up Lunar. And finding them was so exciting. And it was like the best part of my day, best part of my week, that just on my phone, I found this org for people who had my experience, and people continue to come and find us. We see it even this week who found out about Lunar reach out, and it's that same excitement of, oh, I'm able to find other people and find videos and stories and rituals and a rabbi of people who look like me when I thought I was the only one. It's really amazing.
And it's really striking, too, to see the number of people that come to our community not even realizing that they're an Asian Jew or not even realizing that they count. I remember when we were casting the film series, we got applications from people who we cast for the film series that actually said while filming, I didn't even realize, or I wasn't even sure if I would count for this. I wasn't sure if I was Asian enough or Jewish enough to count for this. I didn't think I would qualify because I'm not East Asian. I didn't think I would qualify because I'm not Ashkenazi. I didn't think I would qualify because I'm Jewish, but I didn't really grow up celebrating anything. I didn't think I'd qualify because I'm not religious. Like everyone had a reason why, even to Lunar, even to an Asian American Jewish space, they didn't think that they fit. And I think that's very telling. And definitely something that we try to repair as we grow Lunar, is like showing people that they belong here and they belong beyond Lunar as well.
I was just going to say, people come to us with all kinds of apologies. And like they're only Jewish on their dad's side, or they didn't grow up with this or that, or like, even Jenni at the beginning, like I just went to a Jewish school and then I didn't have all these other, it's kind of like an apology thing. And it's been really important for us to be like, stop, like you are, and like don't do that. Like don't minimize yourself as a Jew, and don't minimize, in a way that I think really breaks my heart, all the ways that we've suppressed or made to feel like we aren't actually Jewish or we aren't actually Asian because we're not in the normal way that people see those things. I think it's so much more harmful than we realize.
Yeah. Like, do you ever feel like you guys still have to, like, for the lack of better words, like code switch and play up one part of your identity over the other when you're in certain spaces?
Yeah, totally. Totally. I think it's this like funny onioning effect, if I could give it a word, of like, for me and also for Jenni, for people who are like also like vaguely ethnic, but you can't place it. Like I think some other Jews of color don't have this experience. Like they visibly look Black. So like they're a Black Jew, or they present more or one way. I'm someone who I think can be harder to trace. I think also with Lunar, like sometimes I don't always want to disclose that I'm an Asian Jew, or I don't always want to disclose that I'm Muslim. Like these are kind of very intimate, vulnerable parts of me. And I like to kind of peel it back or reveal depending on the comfort I feel with the person or the room or the vibe. And it goes across the gamut. Like when Jenni and I were at a retreat last week, And we were in Denver. We got in an Uber. We started talking to the Uber driver, and he asked what we did for work. And my gut was like, I'm not going to tell him that we do a Jewish thing. It just didn't feel like the most comfortable. So I was like, oh, we do a nonprofit. And we kind of like left it at that, right? Like there's one peeling of that, like the Jewish layer, and then there's the Asian layer. And for me, there's the interfaith layer. And there have been times where I've showed up to Jewish spaces and it hasn't felt super comfortable to tell people that I'm Muslim, or it hasn't felt beneficial to LUNAR to tell people that I'm Muslim. So I kind of took that in. And then there's times where I like go to Muslim spaces and I just really want to fit, or it feels like so much of a longer conversation where all the attention's going to go on me to tell them that I run a Jewish thing. So like, again, I do a nonprofit, and like, that's kind of how you leave it. I think it just depends on comfort and onioning. And again, it's a privilege as someone who is not as visible. But I think I do that for my own safety and just like comfort and ease a lot.
As an Ashka forward Jew, I think about being on the opposite end of that process of being in a Jewish space where I'm not questioned as to what I know or where I'm from necessarily. Although people might ask, oh, are you from New York? Because you're wearing a lot of black. And I am. It's fair. It's true. But, you know, I think about the synagogue as an example of a space that all Jews should be welcome in. And, you know, you can also argue people who aren't Jewish should also feel welcome in. And I'm just wondering how we could be more welcoming in these kinds of contexts. It sounds like from conversation that we're having now and for conversations I've had for when I've interviewed Jews of color for articles about inclusion in the Jewish community, that people who don't look like they're Ashkenazi Jews do not want to be asked where they're from. They don't want to assume that they don't know anything about Judaism or that they must be new to a Jewish space. But the reality is also that people want to welcome people and make sure they're comfortable. So part of that is also sometimes gauging how much a person knows in a particular space. You know, is it showing somebody the page that we're on, making sure that they have an English translation? Those kinds of things should be about welcoming everybody, not just people who look different than the majority of the people who end up in that space. I liked the onioning effect kind of terminology, except I'm wondering if those layers of the onion are always in the same place or if they are kind of like the Harry Potter stairs that they just kind of move on their own and enable you to access the layer that you need in that moment. Or is there a primary layer for you that is always there?
That's such an interesting question. I think it's definitely a stairs thing. I think it definitely depends on the environment and the people and the comfort, and also like my place as Maryam in my day-to-day, and then like Maryam who runs LUNAR. And if I'm showing up to a place where I'm trying to make advantageous connections for LUNAR and I'm showing up in a grant context, or I think there's sometimes where I want to make people comfortable, and I know that the ways that I can be passing or more comfortable as a JOC will make the room comfortable and it's advantageous to LUNAR as I do so. And then there's sometimes where I want to be a little disruptive, or I'm and I'm kind of in a mood and I'm ready to kind of shake things up or be like, you completely ignore the JOC perspective here. You're not thinking about it, bring those things to the forefront. I think it ebbs and flows and depends based on which hat I'm in. It's onioning. It's also kind of chameleoning, which is really interesting. And I talked to other JOC leaders, especially JOC leaders who are mixed race, like I am, and they describe the same effect of ways that you are a chameleon. And I think Jenni and I have also seen in that chameleon way ways that we show up in the Jewish community and we're like professional Jews. And then as we've gotten more involved with the Asian community, like we recently joined the Asian American Justice Coalition, and we go to meetings with Asian American leaders and we're like, whoa, all of a sudden we're an Asian professional with other Asian professionals in the Asian community. And like, it can be like this crazy whiplash to be in one meeting 1 hour and then the other in these two very different communities, both as Asian Jews, but like it's looking different. So all of those ways that we chameleon or onion ourselves to be in those different communities look different. And I think it's like endlessly fascinating for me, even as someone who does it, to walk away and be like, whoa, those were two very different meanings, but two very different experiences. And I presented differently in both, and they were both who I am, but it looked different.
I'd like to move to the pop culture segment of our program, if that's all right.
Yeah.
One of the things that we talk about here a lot is Jewish representation. And I will be the first to admit that when we talk about Jewish representation, we are often talking about Ashka-forward, Ashka-normative Jewish presentation. And the question of whether these characters are well fleshed out or caricatures, if they're there just for comic relief or as lawyers for some reason. I think all of these things are possible. But when we're talking about adding the additional layer of a Jew of color or an Asian American Jew, the only Asian Jewish characters we've really seen that we can recall, and you may have others, are Christina Yang on Grey's Anatomy, who was played by
Sandra Oh,
and Tina Cohen Chang on Glee, who was played by Jenna Ushkowitz, who I believe is Jewish and Asian. So we're wondering, now that you've seen like multiple identities on screen, what are the portrayals that are absolutely the worst and should be stricken from the record, and which ones are the best?
I guess for you guys, when you were watching or reading or seeing, was there ever a moment where you were like, oh, I see myself either completely or partially in TV, film, theater, literature?
Well, I would love to uplift a book that I've been reading that was sent to us recently. The book's called Happy for You. It's by Claire Stanford. She's an Asian Jew, and the book stars an Asian Jew and has more than one Asian Jewish character. I'm only a few chapters in, so far 2, but there might be even more. And I just read a bit of the chapter last night where the Asian Jewish character meets another Asian Jew, and they have this moment. It's kind of their backstory of like how these two Asian Jews met. And I read this last night, and I was taken aback by, I read before I go to bed. So I was like kind of falling asleep. I was like, okay, I'm going to finish this chapter, then I'm going to go to bed. And then I read that part and I was like, the Asian Jew met another Asian Jew. And it was a really exciting moment. And I was like, okay, I'm going to stay up a little longer so I can like finish the chapter and like let this sink in. But wow, I'm like celebrating for this character. So LUNAR might do a collaboration with this author, but that was an example of a moment where I was like, I know what that feels like to be an Asian Jew and to meet an Asian Jew for the first time. And it was really cool to see that reflected in a book.
Yeah, one of my favorite books and movies, and there's a few really amazing Asian Jewish authors who are writing Asian Jewish stories, and we now are like in the process of starting a LUNAR book club, and we'll be going through them. It would be really cool to do some kind of LUNAR movie club at some point too. But The Namesake is one of my favorites. I don't know if you guys have read it or seen the movie, but I think to me, as someone who's Indian American, it does such a wonderful, beautiful job of being stuck between worlds and stuck between cultures and wondering what it all means. And I think the process that a lot of us as Asian Jews have also felt growing up is you grow up and you're told that these are your things by your parents, and you go to India or you go spend time with your family in your homeland, but you're living in America and it's all kind of confusing. And in middle school, you just want to fit in and you just want to assimilate. And like, we're Abercrombie and you don't want your name to sound so weird, and you don't want your food to be smelly, and like it's all like so torturous and awful, and you just want to fit. And it really isn't until college or a little bit after college where you start to embrace your cultures. And that's something that The Namesake does a really beautiful job of displaying, and is very similar to how I felt in my own childhood growing up and what a lot of LUNAR community members talk about. One of our LUNAR community members told us a story when we were at our retreat last week of reading about another Asian Jew who works in film and media, and being like, they're an Asian Jew, that's so weird. And then being like, wait a minute. Like, she just was in that point, I think, of like deep insecurity and wanting to fit, that she saw that and had an inverse negative reaction. While now she's like one of our proudest community members and runs a bunch of events for LUNAR, and posted some of our stuff today. I just saw before I hopped on. So I think that development is really funny, and a film like The Namesake does such a good job of that. But I think there are also moments when I watch other Asian stories that aren't exactly my background. Like, for example, Everything Everywhere All at Once, an East Asian family, but there's so many moments of like the Asian family dynamic or the Asian mother-kid dynamic where it's just like, oh, like it really hit me and was so familiar, even though that wasn't exactly my culture of being. Like, I think there's a lot of ways in Asian family dynamics for kids, even though they're being given like the bare essentials of what they need, like food and water, money for school, things like that, they're actually getting neglected in a lot of ways and are being deprived from some larger like love and nourishment and affection that I think is really essential for growth. And I think the film really displayed that.
Yeah, Everything Everywhere All at Once was definitely on our list of things to talk about. I'm wondering, this is just coming up for me now, so I'm going a little rogue, but with Everything Everywhere All at Once, and there's other narratives that are culturally specific. So for instance, one of the things people talk about is My Big Fat Greek Wedding, right? So it's about the Greek community, but it's really also about the Jewish community, or it's about the Asian community, that the cultural specificity is actually more universal than a story that is culturally parve, like that it doesn't fit into one specific ethnic or cultural identity. And I'm just wondering if you have had people say, "Oh, I loved Everything Everywhere All at Once. It's just like the Jewish community." And if you find that annoying or off-putting, or if that's something that you accept and acknowledge, that these kinds of stories can seem specific to the cultural background of somebody whose cultural background is not presented in that movie.
I think I found that people of all backgrounds love that movie. It's just an amazing movie. Obviously, it's historic for the Asian American community. We all love the movie, and we find that a lot of Jews love the movie too. It's just a really good movie. I think something that bothered me, there was some article that came out on a Jewish publication about that movie where they kind of dove into Jamie Lee Curtis being Jewish, and they described it as a movie starring a bagel and Jamie Lee Curtis, like they were reaching for the Jewish things in this movie. And that bothered me because, one, they didn't acknowledge how huge this was for the Asian American community.
Mm-hmm.
It's massive. That was disappointing to see. And also, I feel like there are things to celebrate as a Jew in this movie beyond just the person that is Jewish and the bagel. Like, sure, a bagel is a Jewish symbol. We get it. And yes, Jamie Lee Curtis is Jewish. Cool. But I felt really Jewish watching the movie. I also felt Asian because I was excited for the Asian community. But I don't know, watching it, the idea of exploring multiple universes and kind of overthinking all of these different possibilities feels like a spiral that I get into often that to me feels very Jewish. I think, and I guess I hesitate to speak on behalf of all Jews and try to generalize, but I personally feel very Jewish when I'm overthinking things, when I'm exploring a lot of different possibilities, when I ask questions that lead to other questions that lead to other questions that lead me back to my original question, but with a different context. Like that kind of exploration and like quantum travel to me feels Jewish. And I think that's something to celebrate in addition to just celebrating like, oh, this is huge for the Asian community. We can like show solidarity with the Asian community and celebrate them as well. So that kind of bothered me to see them describe it, just reduce the movie to just a movie starring a bagel and Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yeah.
But yeah, overwhelmingly, it's just a really good movie. I think across the board, everyone loves it.
Yeah, I love that in an effort to praise a movie with an entirely Asian cast, they find the Ashken normative thing about the movie and say, look, it's a Jewish movie, rather than even saying, hey, here are Jewish Asian Americans in this community weighing in on the groundbreaking work of this movie. They kind of pivoted and chose kind of the on the nose angle.
It's also a
story.
very Jewish journalism approach to anything in the culture. And we are sometimes complicit in it as well. You know, when we talk about the Oscars and we're like, oh, they're Jewish. And then, you know, that's part of the coverage that we do. But I hear that. And I think it's not a question of covering just the Jewish parts of it, but it's also about making sure that everyone who's represented is represented. So if we just say, oh, there's nobody nominated for Oscars who's Jewish, but it doesn't mean anything this year, you know, that's not where we come out. But I think that it is an area, at least I'll speak for myself, of personal frustration when there's something that happens in the world and the Jewish press will just say, oh, well, 2 Jews died, or, that kind of thing. I think that we should be more inclusive in our coverage. And I thank you for highlighting that. I also believe that the exploration of multiple universes is something that we talk about here a lot, about the what ifs. And we talk about how basically every Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur is an opportunity to say, what if I did it differently this year? How would my life change as a result? How would other people's lives change as a result? So I think that's something that resonated for me in Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Well, I think it's a little bit of like kind of exactly what we were talking about, of the subconscious, not like maliciously, like intentionally harmful ways that by talking about Judaism, they were centering Ashken normativity and they were centering whiteness, like in that story. And I think we see that also with like Jewish media and Jewish press, even when they talk about Jews of color, like, oh, did you know that Drake is Jewish? And they talk about the ways that he's Jewish in relation to whiteness. And like his blackness could make him Jewish too, like he could be Jewish because he's black. He could be Jewish, like Jews could be Jewish also because they're Asian. And I don't think that people leave room for that conversation because that's not where their brain goes. And so I think like that subconscious bias is really pervasive. And we just see it a lot, like especially in that Forward article. I think it was very evident.
I want to talk about Everything Everywhere and also Turning Red, because the first thing that jumped out at me about these 2 movies is that, one, it was about women, but it was about mothers and daughters. And the relationships that I saw were just really different than anything I had seen, especially from like this Jewish stereotype of mother-daughter relationship. So seeing something like that on screen somehow felt Jewish to me, even though it wasn't. But I don't know. I feel like the fact that these 2 movies came out at the same time were celebrated in similar ways. And I just didn't know if you had any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I loved Turning Red. I thought it was a really great movie and felt very kismet that the 2 movies came out so close together. It feels like Asian American media is really having a moment, and it's really exciting. Hopefully it's not just a moment. Hopefully, Asian American representation continues to grow and blossom. I loved the movie. I loved how it was cute. It was funny. It made me feel seen, even though my story's different. I've never been a panda. And my relationship with my mom is not like that. But it still hit the points of growing up and feeling uncomfortable in your body and in your family and feeling stifled by expectations and wondering kind of who you should be and how you should express yourself and being forced to face these things at the time in your life when all you want to do is crawl into a hole and not face any of it. So I found the movie very relatable, even though my story is different and not quite like that.
I love it. And okay, really quickly, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. Are you guys watching it? There is an Asian character shown in the last few seasons. Do you have thoughts about this character? Is May good, bad? Is she getting it right? What does she mean for Asian representation?
I haven't watched the last season. I'm finishing up Ted Lasso, and then I'm going to watch the last season. That's where I'm at in my watching journey. But I love The Marvelous Miss Maisel. I adore that show. That's an example where I feel really seen on my like Upper West Side Jewish side. I just think, and it's like the 50s. It's like my favorite era. I just adore it. I wish I could live in that show. Yeah, I think May. It's funny. There's been like 1 or 2 times where I've gone in and commented as Asian Jews on Instagram on some of like their little clips. I've been like smiley face heart. Just because I think it's so funny and sweet. I would love to see in this season. I don't know exactly how it happens. Like if she becomes autonomous in carving out a Jewish identity for herself or raising a Jewish child, if that's the route that she goes on. I think when we're talking about stereotypes and Asian women who marry Jewish men, it's the idea that they're a little bit passive and submissive and not as autonomous or have as much agency in like what their own Jewish journey looks to be. And I would love to see that from her. She's already so feisty and such a powerhouse and independent woman in a lot of ways, but I think that could be a really cool step for her.
So just briefly, What do you have coming up and how can people support you and the work of LUNAR Collective?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks so much for asking. It is our double heritage month this month. It's Jewish Heritage Month and Asian American Heritage Month. Double the heritage, double the fun is what I've been thinking this whole week. And so we have a bunch of different exciting offerings for LUNAR that you can find on our website, weareasianjews.org, and you can find the events at weareasianjews.org/events. We're going to be having some national virtual events and also in-person offerings in our hub. So if you're in New York, if you're in Bay Area, those are places where we have events going on this month. We also are going to be featured in the Contemporary Jewish Museum this month, our web series. So if you're a California resident, you're welcome to check that out. And you can find us on Instagram at Asians.Jews. Anything else, Jenni?
I think you covered it. Yeah, we're so excited.
That's amazing, you guys. We're so excited for you. And to close out, we usually ask everybody, if they were a bagel, what kind of bagel would they be? Because we're the Bagel Report. However, I also want to open it up with if there is a food for you that feels Jewish and also represents the multitude of your identity, what is that food for you?
Egg bagel. It is my favorite kind of bagel. And I think it represents me because egg bagels are underrated. I can't find them everywhere. People don't even talk about egg bagels and how good they are. But I know they're good, and that's all that matters.
I love it.
That's fun. I would definitely be an everything bagel, which I'm sure also many multiple metaphors and nuances there.
Amazing answers. Well done, everybody.
Thank you so much for being with us. We really loved having you.
And we can't wait to see what you do next.
Thank you.
This has been The Bagel Report, a production of Jay, the Jewish News of Northern California, and a part of the Jew Folk Podcast Network. Thank you to Lev Gringaz, our producer from Jew Folk Inc., David A.M. Walensky and Andrew Essenston, and Danny Lipsky for creating our logo. You can find us wherever podcasts are listened to. Connect with us on social, on Twitter, at Esther K, at Eben Moshe, and at The Bagel Report, on Instagram at Esther Kostanowitz, at Eben Moshe, and TBR the Pod, and by emailing us at thebagelreport@gmail.com. Now go and watch something interesting, and maybe we'll talk about it next time on The Bagel Report.